Now it is time to do some fine-tuning on our Excel spreadsheet. We're going to start by taking a look at some of the garden worksheets. So I'm going to go over to Back Fence Garden and just make sure it's formatted the way I want it to look. My back fence garden measures 15 feet across, and I need to remeasure that this spring when I can get out there with my tape measure and see, and about 6 feet, actually 5.5 feet deep. So that's my guesstimation right now with the snow blowing on this blustery day. This looks pretty good. I do want to make the font a little larger, so I'm going to click in the very top left square that intersects. There is the corner between the rows and the column headings, and I'm going to change the size of the font to 36 on all of my spreadsheets so I can see my feet across. And again, I have my feet listed up above. Actually, I'm going to put lines around all of that. Now if I select this top corner again and I put my borders around everything, it's going to do it's going to fill the entire sheet, which goes on indefinitely. As you see, you got A, B, and it'll just keep going on, and down to 12 it'll go down to 1,000,000 or whatever it does. So I don't want that to happen. I just want my cells that I'm working with to have the borders. So I'm going to go down to here, so the borders around all my cells have lines, so I can see that I have this broken down into 6-inch segments, so half a foot for each of my cells. The backyard garden has some features in it. I'm not going to put those in right now, but let's just take a look at the boulevard garden. And there I have that set up. It's not completely square, so I'm going to just move this over just a little bit so it squares up. And again, if I have everything selected, it will move all the cells either on the column side or on the row side. Cement pond. I'm going to change the font size up to 36 on that. 36, come on. And this represents the water, and this is just the space in between. You see that changing it to 36 turned my numbers into these hashtags. That's because the space isn't quite wide enough, so I'm going to just move actually everything over just a wee bit so I get a little bit more, so that makes a little too rectangular, and then I'm going to drop this down so everything is uniform. I could have just moved the cells on this row, but I want everything to be uniform for width, so it's a little more square, so I've got an idea what I have for size. Check over here. Again, I'm going to adjust this, and there's a little repetition going on with my tutorial, but I just want to show you some of the things that I am doing in order to create some uniformity. So I've already adjusted all that. The fairy tale garden, I have a tree down the middle with birdhouses, and we're going to put that in with a, oops, it's about that big. Merge that using the merge cell. This is my fairy tree with the birdhouses and the fairy trapped in a cage on top. Fairy tree. There's a bench in there. I'm not going to do all that right now. Fire pit garden. That's behind a large bench I have. Okay, green roof garden. It's a 12 by 12 foot space that is on top of my, oh, that's the grapevine garden. So I've got features in there too, a pond and a fountain and different things. Here's one I want to work on. This has a row up above. That's not standard to the rest of mine. In order to delete a row, if I wanted to delete the contents in the cell, I would select the cells and hit delete. Of course, there's nothing in it. But if I want to delete an entire row, I have to do that on the very furthest spot on your spreadsheet. So the that gives the name of the cell, A1. So I would click on the 1 in the gray area, right mouse click and delete, and that would delete an entire row. Honey garden, that'll be fine. Maple tree garden, we'll just leave that. You know what I need to edit on that. This is not set up according to the other gardens where I have 2 cells representing a foot. So I do need to edit that. So I will select the 3 and the 4. I'm going to merge these cells. And it gave me a message that it's only going to keep part of the data. So that cell, that's 2. And merge is going to do it again for me. Oh, didn't, because there's, anyway. So that should be 3 feet. And then merge this. And that'll be 4 feet. And you see that it dropped down to the bottom. It didn't center it, so we've got some editing to do there. And also need to fill in this. I could go like this and I can find the color, but easier yet would be to just select the cells up here, hover over the very corner where I get the crosshair versus a large cross or plus sign, just get the crosshairs and I pull that down, and that will copy the formatting, which the only formatting is the lines around it and the color of the cells. So that's a really easy way to do that. So now I have it squared up. These are not perfectly square. Let's just, and if I took a look at the top, you see it says width 7.71. So we'll just go over 8, width is 8. So 61 pixels. I can check here and see if it's 50 pixels. So I need 61 pixels, and now I know they are square. I wasn't real particular with the others, but, and then what I did, we're going to bring the size down from 150 so I can see my complete grid, and I'm going to select that and get my lines in there. Now, in the previous tutorials, I've told you how to make sure that your headings for the column heading and the leftmost cell, it stays visible. We're going to do that here because I want to kind of keep track of my feet and how wide this is so I can always see where I'm at. So to do that in Excel, that's a view thing. It's nothing that gets printed out, so it's just assisting you with your view. You go up to view. My insertion point is right here. So these are the cells I want to freeze. I go to view. I'm going to freeze panes, and I'm going to freeze the left and the right. This just freezes the top row. This freezes the first column. I'm going to do both, keep rows and columns visible while the worksheet scrolls based on the current selection. Current selection is right here. So if I had 3 cells to the left of this insertion point, 3 of those would show one row on top, 3 columns. I want just the first column and the first row to show. Select the first one. So as I scroll, I always have the view of the top and the left, no matter how big it gets. So that's something I'll do for all my cells. We've done this before. I'm going to make it a little smaller. It's 200% right now. See, I have these to change. You know, I just did this with a poplar bed. So I can go back to here. I'm going to copy this. I've got those just exactly the way I want. I've got a few poplar beds. Those were beds that had poplar trees in them before we even owned the house. The previous owner made a little raised bed out of that. So before I edit this, actually, I am going to go around here and timbers I had made blue on previous spreadsheets. I'm going to stick with that blue. This should be a good blue. Oh, that's a font. Whoops, excuse me on that. So blue, and border, instead of doing this 4 times, since I have 4 poplar trees used to be, I'll just go ahead and fill this in. And again, I could go like this, drag that down, and I don't have to keep going up to the top. So now I have that set the same. They'll be the same for all my other spots where I have raised beds where poplar trees used to be. I'm going to Control C. I'm going to go to poplar bed number 2. Don't have to format all this. I'm just going to Actually, I'll delete these rows. Start all over again. So delete, all that disappears. Go to the first cell, Control V. Oh, and the reason that happened is because if you do something in between a copy, so this was a copy, and I had deleted rows, it interrupts that, so I have to go back and copy again. So it's a good thing that happened, so you know why didn't it paste? Control V, and all the information. It didn't keep my height, so let's go ahead. Up. You know what? I don't want to do that. Let's see if I can paste the next one. Control V. Yep, I can paste that one. Poplar bed number 3. Control V. And again, I'll have to adjust the height and width, but I have all my borders in there. I have all my merged cells in there, and that makes it a little bit easier. My south of the driveway garden is fine. It's the whole length of my house. Species garden, so I'll have other plants in there, mostly a lot of species. I'm going to delete these first 2 rows. Right mouse click, and you're getting the idea, hopefully, how this works. Make sure you select the gray area, right mouse click, and delete. We are now going to take a look at some conditional formatting. Conditional formatting allows you to change the way a cell looks according to what is been designated as a condition in that cell that you want to look different. So the condition that I'm going to focus on is having something in the cell. So here we have a 3 or a 4 representing 4 feet, the 4 feet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feet of my garden, so the 4-foot mark. And I'm not so concerned about having this cell, the features in these cells change, but I do want to highlight where my plants are a little bit more, so when I refer back to it I can see I have a bit of a balance, or I have a notion where things are. So to do this, I'm going to select the entire worksheet in this instance, and I'm going to go to conditional formatting, which you will find on the Home tab, and I'm going to create a new rule. Here's some of the rule types. Format all cells based on their values. That doesn't seem to fit what I want it to do, so take a look at the next one. Format only cells that contain, yep, that seems like a good start to this, so that contain something. So here again we have cell value, specific text, and no, the text is going to change, so that's not appropriate. Dates occurring, we're not dealing with dates. Here we go, blanks or no blanks. So I'm going to go with no blanks, so there's going to be some kind of information in there. So select no blanks, and the look of this changes, and I'm going to have it formatted with a certain color. So here's our colors, and I'm going to change it to green. I don't want to get too dark because, as you see, the cells, when you click on them, turn purple on the hyperlinks. When they haven't been clicked on, they're the blue, traditional blue, and they're underlined. So I'm going to pick a green, and I think I'll try this little bit lighter green, and I'll say OK. And oh, here we've got, don't want color. I don't want the text color. I'll drag this down a little bit. Oh, font color, that's not what I wanted. I do black on the color, stay there, and so I do it. Just, this is a good reminder that you got to pay attention to what you're changing. The font color, I want to keep that, the color of the hyperlink. And so I'm going to go back in here to fill, and we're going to go with that green, same green. Should be a nice contrast with the brown there, and OK. And OK. And so you see, once I click in here, the text around here did change, and that's fine with me. I could have just selected this space and had it address these areas, but that way if I have, when in the spring when I have, or if I dig out more dirt, which happens all the time in my yard, and I add more cells, those will automatically have that conditional formatting change. So if I end up with 8 feet here instead of 7, then that will change too. And if I have a plant that's in here, so a heuchera, so it'll be an H1, for instance, then that would change as well. So I did the whole table, and that way I always have that formatting applied to all of that. Undo here, undo that. Of course, if I wanted to, and I knew it was growing, I could select the 6, actually just the 7, and scroll over. It would give me an 8. It would merge those two cells, fill in the 8 because I've already done a series of numbers. We know that we're going to continue. It would change this into the merged cell, like I said, and it would give it the green color of that conditional formatting.